My name is Fumi. In terms of how I sign my work, I go by funmilayo aileru. I'm a transdisciplinary artist, craftsperson, and designer, um, working with um, Afrofuturist concepts, perspectives, and approaches, specifically Afro-Indigenous concepts, perspectives, and approaches. I don't have a specific catalyst or moment of inception. Um, my mother is Narragansett Niantic, so um, just cultural craft has always had an omnipresence in my life for as long as I can remember. Whether it be leatherworking, beading, dancing, um, even singing beyond that. In my family, our art and craft has always been a part of my life, even if those particular words and phrases weren't used to identify or describe it. I'll say in a more um, in a much more Western sense, that came around, I would say, in adolescence, early adolescence, the end of childhood. Not only with just painting and drawing and sketching, but really getting into a photographic practice as a teenager with a local arts organization. Um, so my entry point being analog black and white photography, and sort of using that creative lens as a form of expression at that point in time in my life, which was a very important and crucial moment in terms of where I am now as an artist and a cultural practitioner. The way in which I'm engaging race in my artistic or creative practice is exploring and investigating constructions of race beyond our earthly tethers, is how I engage. Um, Not only that background, that experience, that reality, but also the um, sort of the history behind it, the um, the past in which that informs our current causes and conditions as it concerns um, race and ethnicity, specifically Blackness and indigeneity, is what I am exploring in my works. So um, situating these constructs beyond Earth, on Mars, um, in space, in outer space, are the ways in which I'm able to not only engage them conceptually, aesthetically, um, but also in terms of future world building and future narrative writing, is the ways in which I engage race and ethnicity in my work. I think that it's important to note um, that I don't the intention and purpose of that particular practice um, is not to be confused with escapism through art practice. I think that it provides an opportunity and um, sort of a creative space for me to think beyond um, like the stressors, the causes and conditions of being an Afro-Indigenous person who makes, quote unquote identity work. Um, I think thinking beyond my current constricting bounds allows me to um, engage things on a conceptual and aesthetic level that I might not have arrived at in this way if I didn't position or situate my creative practice within a futurist text, within an Afro-Indigenous futurist text. I think that the role of art in challenging times is not only important now, it's always been important in times of challenge, in times of adversity, in times of uprising and upheaval. You even think of the history of something like graphic design and its roots being in protests and grassroots organizing. I think that art, craft, and design are things that are just intrinsically intertwined with human experience. I think that it is an important mechanism, and a mechanism that becomes very crucial and vital when there is challenge, when there is difficulty, when there is harm, when there's hurt. When there is whenever there are instance of any sort of suppression, oppression, art is not only art is a place where folks are able to arrive at creative solutions to our cultural, social, political issues. Folks are able to cope through art. Folks are able to communicate through art. I think that art, in general, and at its most basic level, it is a vehicle for change in challenging times, whether that's intentional or whether that is impact. And then you have the adverse side of things where, I've seen a lot of, trash, harmful art. So it can go either way. With art being a mode of expression, when folks are, on that, folks are being, are in places of difficulty, or that sort of boiling point starting to arise in a person or a people, that energy has to go somewhere. And oftentimes you see that come up through or via art making and art practice. A wish I have for the world is a world that I imagine is a world that is no longer anti-Black and have given Black people and Black communities some form of reparations, and folks can figure out what that looks like. I also imagine a world that sort of supports Indigenous people being sovereign and gives them their fucking land back. I think that's the world that that's the hope and the wish I have for the world today. It may change tomorrow. I think the thing that continues to surprise me most about my artistic career is that it just exists, period. And coming from where I come from, art isn't a hobby, it's not a career, it's not a it's not a professional pathway. And it's not that folks are hating on art, it's just never been presented as a practical means of living. So for me, I'm constantly unlearning what I've learned about having um, a career in the creative field. And I think that the more that I become aligned with, I guess, the vision I had for myself, or the vision that my inner child has in terms of my where I am in terms of, my life and happiness or contentment around it is deeply rooted in my artistic practice and my artistic career. So I think it in of itself continues to be a surprise for me, or something that like I continue to wrap my mind around, or even just being in a position, especially as a Black queer femme, like of something that you sought out to get is now attainable or tangible. Just that reality, period, is sort of what that's the thing that continues to not only surprise me, but for me to be in awe of, and the amount of immense privilege that has come with that. I do believe that I am blessed in that sense, especially just thinking about, my family, my local community, my tribal community of folks who are incredibly talented craftspeople, especially artists and designers. And conversations I've had with folks of my community of being like they would love more than anything to completely pursue an artistic career, or that their craft being able to having a sustainable practice that also generates income, so they're able to do that. Yeah, so that's my answer to that one. For me, as a person with a practice that's digitally based, it would be some sort of computational device, whether that's a laptop or tablet. Also, hopefully, I'll be able to have like an embedded Wi-Fi connection, and there's a tower at some place, or to be able to communicate beyond that island. That's how I create work. Computer generated imagery and animation is where a lot of my stuff comes from, or that is a part of like somehow a part of my installation or sculptural practice. There is always some sort of digital or electronic element. So I think that is the thing I'd bring.